This video is brought to you by my patrons and by viewers like you. Greetings, groovy people! Welcome to Blue Dragon Art. I am the self-proclaimed Blue Dragon. This is a channel where I talk about indie comics and art-related topics, anything that really interests me. And today I'm going to talk a bit about what art means to me in this video, a little bit of my philosophy, and yeah, I'm going to talk a bit about my feelings on AI generators, be it for art generating or musical art generating or word generating or just chatting with it in general. But I'm not going to go into nearly as much detail as I could. This is just kind of like a cursory tour of my thoughts and my views on these generators. And spoiler alert, it's not good. I mean, duh. I don't think that should come as a surprise to anyone who knows me or anyone who watches this channel. But I'll go into a little bit of detail, but no, I actually have recorded longer audio and been planning like a more in-depth video, but it's like, I don't know if it's even worth my time to. Maybe it is. I don't know. I might finish it. I might, but at this point I feel like I'm just preaching to the choir. But anyway, in the background, you're going to see me inking a page from a one-shot that I'm working on for the Fall and Winter Comic Fury zine. The one-shot is from my free post-apocalyptic magical girl fantasy, Dark Horse. It's not safe for work, but it is free to read online at several places, and that's what I'm working on in the background. And if you happen to be watching the visual portion of this video, I know that sometimes people will listen to the audio but not really look at the video, and that's fine. That's fine. But if you're looking at it, you're going to see that I've made a grid of squares, and then some of those have circles in them. What I was doing when I began this page, we were out, and I initially thought that what I would do is I would draw one rose and then digitally copy that ink work, maybe even color or screen toner or whatever I plan to do with this page. I don't know yet. I haven't done it yet. But I was going to only do one of those roses and then like digitally copy and paste the line work or the finished rose so that I, could kind of have that shortcut and get this page done quicker. So that was like the original plan. And I don't think there's anything wrong with shortcuts like that. I want to preface this video and what I'm going to talk about with that. I don't think shortcuts and using tools to make things easier, I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't always think it's a bad thing. I do think that it's important sometimes to not take the shortcut, but I'm going to kind of get into things a little bit later. The long and the short of that thought is I use them too. I sometimes have to flip an eye. I'll either do it manually by tracing it and using like graphite to like put a ghosting down and then like draw darker over with like my blue pencil, or I'll just do it digitally. I'm not against that. I don't think there's really anything wrong with that. But what happened when I sat down to ink this is I finished inking the first rose, and while I was doing it, I was kind of thinking, it would be kind of cool if I do a couple of these roses and then copy and paste them, and then I'll have like maybe a variant of 3 different roses, and it'll look a little less static. I think it would have looked just fine if I'd done it the other way. It would have been way more, what's the word for it? It would have been more uniform. But then I started thinking, oh, well, it might be kind of cool to have like a little bit of variety, and, that can be cool too. But then, after I drew a couple more, I just kind of, I won't say that I completely stopped thinking. I won't say that my mind went blank, because I'm always, listening to music or something while I'm working. But when I got done with, 3 different roses, I just kept going. I found that I was enjoying myself. I lost myself. And when I did finally start thinking, it was kind of along the lines of, how can I make this one different from the last? It almost became like a little bit of a challenge for me. Even if they all look similar, each one will end up looking different. But what can I do to shake it up a bit? And by the end of inking each rose, most of them freehand. I did have one that I had sketched freehand, but had followed along. Well, I think I did a couple that were already lined. I can't remember. But at any rate, by the end of it, by the time I came to the conclusion, I was kind of glad that I knew each and every one of those roses was an individual rose. Like, that was not my intent going into it, but then, like, when I finished, I was like, wow, this actually looks really cool, and I'm glad that I did them individually. Like, I was happy to know that I ended up being comfortable enough to freehand the majority of them with ink, with no underlying sketch or anything. And that very act was something, or is something, I should say, that I am proud of. That I'm proud of the work that I did. I'm proud of how I was able to not have to sketch everything out and could just do it by hand. Just ink it by hand. My hand, my mind, my body created this, is kind of like the thought behind it. And it'd still be cool, in my opinion, if I had decided to copy and paste as I'd originally planned, as I said a moment ago, but I feel like going the extra mile was good for me. Like, the feeling that I get when I look at it, like that sense of pride, that sense of accomplishment, it feels really good. So why draw them all individually when that's so tedious, when a computer can do it for me? And I would have to say, like, for myself, the answer that I found, again, for me, was that it was the process. It was the process of doing. The computer could have copied the one that I inked, or even multiples that I'd inked, but the computer couldn't give me the experience of the process of drawing them. And again, I'm not gonna shit on shortcuts. There's definitely a time and a place for shortcuts, and I totally use shortcuts myself, okay? I'm not judgy about folks using the undo command as many fucking times as their happy little heart desires when they're working digitally. I don't think that's cheating, okay? If you don't like a line, I will erase things. Sometimes I erase things so much that I end up throwing my hands up and having to start over because I can't physically erase it, so I'll turn the page over so as not to waste the paper, and then I'll just start drawing again, or I'll get a clean page and leave that backside for like another drawing that I'm going to do. That's more detail than you needed to know, but I'm definitely not judgy about that. I think that focusing on the minutia and bitching about someone using the undo is a little unrealistic and kind of stupid. While I was able to do the roses freehand, that's not always the case for everything. I'm no Kim Jong, what's his name? The Korean guy who's like amazing. He just recently passed away. Kim Jong-yi, I think. Yi, I think. If I'm saying that wrong, I am so sorry, you guys. I've heard it a billion times, but I'm stupid. I'm going off the cuff with that. I should have just followed my script. But I'm not like him. I can't just like put the ink to paper and just draw beautiful things from my mind. Sometimes I gotta sketch and kind of hone it down. So I'm not against, like, using tools and stuff. But I will say that digital tools, like a program, it is different from an AI-generated image. And most of you, I'm sure, are already on board with this. So again, I'm just preaching to the choir, but maybe some of you out there are wanting to know why, how, why is it any different than using Photoshop or Clip Art Studio or GIMP or Fire Alpaca or whatever the fuck, you name it, whatever program that's like people will draw in. And there's a couple reasons why it's different, at least the way that I'm looking at it, why I feel it's different. There are some problems that are overlapping that I'm not going to get into too much detail about, but when it comes to like any kind of computer tech, be it your phone, be it your tablet or whatever, I don't really want to go into details about this because it's such a glacier. There's so much under the iceberg, there's so much iceberg under the water. Not a glacier, I should say. It's an iceberg. But with all types of these technological devices, there's always like the underlying thing of like the child labor that's going into like mining the mica and mining a lot of very hazardous materials. And that's something that I'm not gonna go into in this video. I don't judge people who use digital tablets and stuff based on that. It is something that I personally try to avoid, and I think that the tech companies should be held responsible for that. And I think that, yeah, it's our job to maybe try to hold them responsible, but ultimately there really needs to be like some laws put in place to prevent them from, taking advantage of people like that. So again, this is not me like coming at this saying that AI is the only thing that is guilty of this, but that is going to be kind of a part of what I'm going to briefly discuss here. I also kind of want to like preface all this before we even get into the nitty gritty of like my cursory thoughts, is that I will be the first to admit that philosophically I am very anti-capitalist. I don't know exactly what I am. I wouldn't say that I'm full-blown communist, but I wouldn't say that I'm a full-blown socialist either. I don't know what I am. I just want to lay it on the table that much of what I personally create art-wise, you can access for free digitally. And some of you might come at me and say, well, that's because your art's shit. And yeah, that's probably, I wouldn't argue with that. But, you know, there's even shitty art that people sell. People are selling AI-generated shit, okay? But at any rate, that's neither here nor there. I'm just, you know, I like to poke fun at myself a little bit. But, I mean, I do like to give my art away for free. Like, I do sell things, and I'll get into that in just a minute. But, like, I've also been known to, like, just give out free comics. I leave them in library bins. Some of that's self-promotion, but, you know, I also will give it to friends and family. And sometimes I'll just give it for fucking free to strangers that I've chatted with. Or I'll do, like, art trades, comic trades, zine trades. I do sell my art, and I do sell my labor. And I do that because we live in a society where you can't just give stuff away for free. The reality is that, you know, as much as I personally wish we lived in a world where we could do art and share it for free without fear of starving or, you know, having to buy clothes, you know, if clothes were free, if we had free roofs over our head, you know, maybe it would be a different situation. My personal philosophy is that I'm all about giving art away for free, but I also see the reality is that we don't live in that ideal world that I would prefer. And as such, I know that we as a people, much of the world, I should say, we do have to, much, if not all of the world, I should just say everyone, has to work to afford what I feel are human rights. Human rights that I personally don't feel should be denied by anyone. Access to housing, clothing, food, water, whatever. So when I come along and I see a corporation steal the livelihood away from artists who are trying to make a living, even though my personal philosophy is that I think art should be free, at the same time, we're not living in that ideal world that I want. So that really fucking pisses me off. I don't care if it was when Lisa Frank Inc. literally was stealing fucking Cloudland from that Amina. She goes by Tassel Fairy on YouTube. Allegedly. I'll say that to cover my ass, but it's very clear what happened. Just taking advantage of someone who literally, they know how to work the law, so they just fuck over the independent artists. Or it's the same when I see Midjourney or whatever fucking shit generator it is, downloading copyrighted artwork and material into their Lion, or is it Lion, I think is how it's pronounced, their database, and use that as training data. That is fucking theft. And that type of theft is so incredibly blatant, and it's done by those who have power against others with less power, with less autonomy. There's no way right now to ethically generate images, unless you've got one where, I don't know, maybe there's one where somebody has taken only volunteer artists into their database. Okay, whatever. Even so, I'm going to go into details of why I don't feel it's ever ethical. But number one, that the ones that everyone's using, Midjourney, Dolly, that kind of shit, it's using stolen fucking art, copyrighted art. It's stealing shit from other people. So in my opinion, there is like no way to ethically generate images at this moment. And I know that people will argue, well, I'm only using it for myself. Fucking bullshit. I know people who were trying to create games, people who I know in reality, in real life, that are using audio and visual images. Like he owns fucking a subscription to DALL-E, and he uses it. And I think he also may have used Midjourney. I can't remember, but he fucking uses it, and he's using it to make a game for himself. And now he's doing some other shit, but I'm not going to get into that because it's nobody's business. But it's, people will always say, oh, I'm just using it for myself. Motherfuckers, no. I see people using it and trying to sell it all the time. And then trying to copyright their shit. The dude who did that fucking weird-ass D-opera, whatever the fuck it was. I'll put a link for it down in the description. He won that contest, that art contest in Colorado, and now he's like printing his AI shit and trying to sell it, and is pissed off when people steal it and use it and shit like that. It's like, no, don't fucking bullshit me. Don't fucking gaslight. I think that's gaslighting. I need to look up the term. I'm pretty sure that's it. When people say that, no, you're not just using it for your fucking self. You're either using it for yourself to show off and pretend like you created the art, or more often than not, people are using it to try to fucking sell it and make money. That just, don't fucking try to fucking be coy with me, motherfuckers. These imaginary people that I'm arguing with in my head, these are people, they're not imaginary. I've seen people fucking argue with artists who are pissed off about it, and it's so infuriating. Motherfucker, you can't create it yourself. You want to steal somebody else's skill and hard work and talent so that you can shit out something and pretend like you've made something just because you know how to construct a sentence, a description. And then you want to, like, poo-poo and downplay and make fun of people who are righteously angry. Like, you're not doing something that's illegitimate. Fuck you. Fuck you. Again, not you specific, not necessarily you, listener out there, but fuck those people. That's bullshit, and they know it, and they're just fucking being assholes. Or they're hiding behind the shield of the persons with disability that they neither know nor care about. It's just a convenient fucking shield for them to use to defend their use. Much like, oh my god, okay, we're not going to get on that. I'm going to stop right now because I could go on, but it pisses me off. If you typed a prompt to generate an image, the most that you've done is commissioned a piece, kind of. You had no fucking hand in the creation of that piece. The Medici, they housed and paid for glorious fucking pieces of art, and they took care of the artists who made that. But even then, when it comes to the Medici, we don't credit them with the actual labor, the actual craft that went into a work by Leonardo or Michelangelo. We don't act like the Medici painted the birth of Venus. We know that it was Botticelli. They made the work possible, and yeah, we might celebrate that which they gave to the creation of that art, but they're not the fucking artist. They're the patron. They're the commissioner. And whatever, I don't even want to get into like these big houses of power and whatever you can say about them, at the very least they were putting food in someone's mouth. There's a lot more that goes into it. Obviously, I'm just scratching the surface, but someone fucking using Midjourney or using DALL-E, they're not even doing that. Someone who's using a generator isn't even doing that. To me, it's being a worthless turd. Like, maybe the person isn't worthless, but their action is that of a worthless turd. I'm sorry, I'm so mad. That's really harsh words here. I need to keep myself toned down because this makes me so angry. But, I mean, in that sense, I would argue that the Medicis did more for the world of art than any tool using fucking Midjourney or DALL-E. Because they literally did pay the artists to share a vision that they had. Now, they were trying to buy their way into heaven, and that probably didn't work. But at least we got some really fucking cool art. We got some funny fucking art out of it. Man, if you go to the Sistine Chapel, if you are that lucky, you have the option of doing that. I have not yet. I want to. But fucking Michelangelo hated, like, this specific dude who was in the church. I can't remember if he was like a cardinal or what the fuck. But like over the pulpit, he deliberately painted some guy's bare ass, like just to mock and make fun of this fucking person. And it's fucking hilarious. And an AI's not gonna fucking make that choice unless some person tells them to do it. Whereas here was a fucking hilarious intentional choice by Michelangelo because he was a salty, crabby guy. And also, there was a lot of corruption in the church and shit, but that's fucking hilarious. That's fucking hilarious. that's just a fucking great story to me. Just that fucking humanity. It's just so much more valuable. And those pieces, even that, I mean, the Sistine Chapel is gorgeous. These pieces, the photographs that I've seen, I should say, they've actually stood the test of time. We're still talking about this shit, or we could even talk about, like, Asian art. Sadly, a lot of African art got destroyed by colonialists, but, I have studied some, like, African art, and you can see, like, in their sculpture, you can see, like, there's so much to be said. There's so much cool shit. Or if you go over to, like, South America and you look at, like, the art that's, like, carved into the temples, there's so much story, there's so much meaning, and it's withstanding the fucking test of time. It's not some shitty, poorly rendered digital slop that can be mass produced, and it just has no meaning when it's that fucking mass produced. But, like, seriously, like, compared to what a sentient human creates, that fucking shit can't stand up to it. It's just meaningless. There's nothing in it. It's soulless. And that's just the bare bones of that view that I hold when it comes to AI generated images. So the too long didn't read. It's theft and it's unethical against artists, the ones that were stolen from, and also the ones that this computer is being used to take their fucking job. This machine is taking their job for something that, it's an expression of your humanity, so it's not even like a job that it makes sense for a machine to take. No, there's no point in it, because art is human expression, so to have a computer do it, you should be doing it. You should be expressing that art in whatever way you can. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more later in the video. The next reason is the environmental impact, and this is where I'm not going to go into a lot of fucking detail, but I'm pretty sure it was Microsoft that literally is having the government put water restrictions. It might not have been Microsoft, don't quote me on that. There is a company that has a bunch of fucking servers, it's in Texas, it's around Houston, I think. And they're literally putting, like, restrictions on how much water the human beings can consume, because they gotta use the water to cool off these fucking servers. That's fucked up. What the fuck is wrong with you if you think this is okay? If you think that it's more important that we have access to these fucking garbage generators, be it ChatGPT, be it DALL-E, be it Midjourney, be it Gemini, be it whatever the fuck it is, that's more important, your fucking need of convenience for something that you never needed to use in the past, you never needed it before, you're gonna place that fucking, you being lazy or just shooting the shit for fucks and giggles with ChatGPT, or not doing the work yourself with ChatGPT, that's more important than real people's access to a fucking mandatory resource? Are you kidding me? Seriously? That's just the tip of the iceberg. I already mentioned a little bit about, like, the child labor that's, that's just being used for mining of resources. And again, that's for, like, all tech, pretty much all tech, not just the generators. But, I mean, I could talk about, like, the water pollution. I could talk about the other forms of pollution and how it's, like, accelerating global heating because of all the fucking heat and the processes that are just expending shit into the air. It's the point of it is that at the end of the day, tech is already, the regular tech that we use every day is already having a negative effect on our planet, on other human beings. And AI is upscaling that damage by stealing resources, contributing to global warming, and polluting water and land sources. And why? So someone can generate subpar image slop and babble inanely or look up something with the fucking AI that half the time, like, they're quite often finding that the AI is wrong, giving wrong information. There was a fucking case that lawyers were dumb enough to try to use AI to fucking look up cases, and it was just manufacturing fucking made up fucking cases. And the books that like your arguments are based on when you're a lawyer are physical things that you have to reference. Like those codes that they put are literally where you reference, and like the judge was like, where these are made up fucking codes. That was a fucking, man, it's just, oh my god. Seriously, that's that's why we care about using AI. I don't know. It's just, no, do the fucking work. It's hard, but there's a reason why we need to do the work sometimes. Have we all, like, collectively lost our fucking minds? I know a lot of us haven't, but there's a lot of people who don't think too deeply, who are just going along with this, and they have no fucking clue, nor do they care the damage that this shit is doing. Not just to the fucking artists, not just to the planet, but also to themselves. Like, to their own fucking mind. That's gonna be, like, the last topic that I go into, is that these AI generators aren't just shit for those who are being, offended and stolen from. It's hurting the people who are using it, too. It's hurting us. If you use it, it's hurting you. There are more and more studies that are coming out regarding attention span for kids, but I would argue also for adults. I'll put a couple resources down from, like, people that have done some of this research. I haven't read it all yet because some of this has just come out. But this research is about, like, kids who've been, like, overusing their phone and how the effects of convenience change, like, your brain and your ability to cognate, to think. I mean, even if I don't go into all of those fucking studies individually, some of them, one of them is, like, from the UK. Here in Portland, we voted to have, like, cell phones, like, put away when kids are in class because it's a distraction and you don't need it when you're supposed to be paying the fuck attention. It really harms a child's learning ability and attention span. But I'm gonna kind of go to, like, an old adage. Even if I'm not using, like, this research, I can just attest from, like, observation. Again, this is anecdotal. I'll put some sources down in the description. But just from fucking pure observation, there's an old adage which says that if you don't use it, you lose it. Now, I'm not always a fan of folksy bullshit. A lot of sayings are nothing more than that. It's just old folksy bullshit used to explain something that people didn't understand. But I will say that old fucking adage is not entirely untrue. It's very, in my opinion, very true. I've experienced it myself. I used to be able to have, like, limited conversations in both Spanish and Japanese, but I'm never around anyone who speaks Spanish or Japanese. I used to have, like, a friend who spoke Spanish, and I would, like, talk to him a bit, but, like, I don't know, after high school, he moved to Florida, and we saw each other at, like, one or two of my parties thereafter, but, I lost contact with him, so, like, I don't fucking talk Spanish to him. I've never had any close Japanese-speaking friends, so I've never been able to use that, so I have pretty much lost my ability to even form, like, simple sentences. Like, I never was able to learn a big enough vocabulary, but the vocabulary that I learned, it's mostly gone because I don't use it. And that's something that, like, we know. I mean, I don't need to, like, present you with that. Like, we know that people, if they don't use something, they start to lose it. I don't want to get my partner in trouble, but I will say there's somebody that is insisting that his team use AI for a lot of their coding projects. And what he has been observing is the people who are, like, all dicks out about the fucking coding, one, they weren't particularly good to begin with, but where they had improved in their coding abilities, they've been losing their ability to fucking do it. Like, to code properly. And they're constantly coming to him who, it's come down from the top that they have to use coding, but man, Bradman is constantly coding at home for projects for himself. He codes things for me upon my request. I'm so generous, aren't I? Giving him work to do to keep his brain sharp, right? I'm so giving. I'm so benevolent. It's not at all about me. Okay, no, I'm just kidding. But, like, he has his own projects that, like, he's very particular about keeping his skills honed, because even if they're being forced to use these generators at work, he ends up not using it half the time. Like, he'll what they tell them and force them to do, he has to do. But, like, he ends up having to use his own fucking mind because they're shit at it anyhow. The generators are garbage at coding. And even though it is realistically a job that those generators could get good at, like, if you don't use that language, if you don't keep it sharp, then you're going to end up like the people who can't solve the fucking problem and gotta come to him to fucking solve it because he's still fucking trying to keep himself on the top of his skill level. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not like shitting on those people. Like they have more and more been kind of like trying to make sure that they improve their own craft. I'm not trying to like shit on people. But I'm just saying, like, it's been very frustrating hearing him talk about, like, the only folks who are really particularly helpful are the ones who aren't heavily, like, sucking the dick of the AI. You know what I'm saying? And that's all I got to say about that. But, yeah, so, I mean, again, that's anecdotal, but I'm just saying, man. That's two things. But seriously, it doesn't, and it really shouldn't take a billion studies for us as humans to realize that if we don't exercise our brains, they, like our bodies, will atrophy. This to me just feels like fucking common sense. But common sense isn't really, so common. I've got one more anecdote, which is well known in the field of nursing. Something, in fact, that the nurses were telling me when my dad was first diagnosed with vascular dementia was that if he followed, like, these exercises they gave him, and if we got him, like, word puzzles and different kind of puzzles, they said that their observation was that cognition in that person will last for a bit longer if you exercise your mind and if you exercise your body and don't let your muscles atrophy and don't let your brain atrophy. And as someone who is, like, genetically predisposed, I'm at a higher risk for one of these diagnoses because several people in my family on my dad's side have had some form of Alzheimer's or dementia. I'm using them interchangeably, but, like, my dad, like, people will correct me on, like, the use of the term dementia, but, like, he was like flat out diagnosed with vascular dementia, so I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I don't know that it was exactly the same thing as Alzheimer's. But that's a digression. That's neither here nor there. I take that advice to heart. I'm gonna fucking listen to the professionals. I'm going to listen to the motherfucking nurses and pay attention to the importance of keeping my mind sharp. Just because I know that, there's a potential for it. I am predisposed, as a lot of women on my dad's side of the family had and have this issue, much like he did. So the point is, it's important for us to use our minds, to exercise our brains. And if we let AI do our thinking, which a lot of times, I'm not even going to talk about, like, art in and of itself that it tries to create, it's wrong. It does not do it correctly. That's not even taking into account how many times it comes back with an answer that people ask it, and it's just fucking wrong. It's just fucking wrong, man. So, if we're letting AI do that work for us, do the artwork or do the thinking, you and we're not reaping the benefits of that action, of that cognition. It's far more beneficial for us to do the work ourselves because it enhances our lives. It sharpens our brains. It builds upon our experiences. Telling a machine what you want so it'll shit out an approximation of what you're looking for does nothing to build an appreciation for the art or to give you the capability of doing something or somebody else the capability of doing something if you hire them. You can produce 100 soulless fucking images in a day, if not more. I don't know, because I don't use it. But I know you have to pay for it. You only get so many images before you have to pay the company that stole the fucking training data more money, not the actual fucking artists. You could instead actually pay a living, breathing human being to make the kind of piece that you're looking for to your specifications and feel a sense of pride in, like, supporting a person and the intentional work and supporting the actual person and bringing a thoughtful, intentional piece of work into existence. And in that way, it really does feel more like a collaboration. Yeah, you might be more akin to the Medici, but you had somebody create that work. And so there's a connection there. Or you can learn to create the art yourself. I mean, it may be harder for some than others. It's true that there are some people where making art comes more naturally, but that doesn't mean that they're not still working hard and honing their skill. It doesn't mean that just because if you view it, it looks like it comes easier to them, that they haven't been working just as hard to better themselves, to create art more in tune with what is in their mind and what their vision is. But even so, even if you're not that kind of person like me, I've always had a natural inclination to art, but I've shown some of my old art here on the channel before, and it's like, yeah, of course it doesn't look great. Maybe it looks like, not nearly as skilled as someone else my age. But if I never, honed that craft, I wouldn't even be where I am today. And even when I look back at those pieces, I can look back and say, see all the mistakes that I made at the time. But even so, I'm not, the kind of person who will look back on my old art and be ashamed of it. I'm still proud of what I was able to accomplish at that stage in my life, because I know that that's, a necessary step. It's a necessary step that I needed to take in order to ascend to the level of skill that I'm at now. And where I'm at now is a necessary step that I have to do in order to get to where I'm going in the future. It might be harder for some than others, but I believe that anyone can do art. Maybe it's not going to be drawing. I'll get to this in just a minute. Maybe it's going to be something else. But I've seen people who don't have limbs create beautiful masterpieces. I've watched people videotape somebody creating beautiful art, and they were using their mouth, they were holding the utensil with their mouth and creating the art that way. And it was so impressive and so beautiful. And I'm not even saying, oh, it's harder for them. Maybe it's not harder for them. I don't know. Maybe. I don't want to assume. Maybe that comes naturally to them. Maybe it's something that, that they worked on, and so it's not as hard as it might be presumed to be. I don't know. I don't want to assume on somebody else's behalf just because they don't have any limbs. You know what I'm saying? But then when I think about Degas, he did a lot of, if you aren't familiar with Degas, most of you out there probably are, but he did a lot of paintings of ballerinas. But as he aged, he started to lose his vision. And so he switched to sculpting, and he started sculpting things with his hands. And they're still absolutely phenomenal pieces of work. Hell, I brought him up several times, but even John Milton, who was a writer, as he started to lose his vision, he would have to dictate his writing and his prose to somebody else to write it down for him. So there are so many types of art, and there are so many different mediums and so many different ways that we can either create art solely ourselves or even collectively. I didn't even talk about collective works of art, you guys. I mean, I touched upon it with Milton, but then you've got pieces that are communally made. Oh my God, the whole concept of happenings. People might laugh at it now, but the concept of having a happening was so that it could be a communal art experience that everyone involved is a part of the piece. So, I mean, it's better, in my opinion, for a person to experiment with what medium is right for them, whether it be collage, or, maybe you don't want to draw and paint, maybe you want to write zines, or you want to make poetry, or you want to create zines. Hell, if you're so damn hell-bent on prompting, maybe that's a call to you to, do some writing, and maybe hone that type of skill. Maybe you don't necessarily need to have, an image, or you can work with someone to create an image. As a person who cannot play an instrument and is not really interested in learning, I can attest that I derive a lot of joy from soaking in the musical art of others and letting their music and lyrics and sound speak to me. I know that if I wanted to create music and use a generator, that would just be meaningless. It means nothing. It means absolutely nothing, because it's lacking the human element. It's lacking the intent of when someone uses this note or when someone does that. It removes that spark of joy, the human need to make a piece and to share it. And this is maybe not going to mean anything to anyone, and I don't care. I want to share this story. I had found myself listening to this playlist of songs that it's apparently in this theme of Rat Detective. Now, I want to preface this by saying I don't know if that music is AI generated. As I'll explain later, the fact that people can generate AI music has really been a detriment to all of the arts, because it's I'll talk about it in a minute, why I feel that. But anyway, I used to listen to this list, and at first I really liked it. But the more I listened to this one specific list, and then I moved to some of the other lists, I wasn't paying attention to when they were being uploaded. But the more I listened to them, something started bugging me. Something started kind of irritating me about the music in ways that a lot of other kind of funk music, stuff like that does not. It still is hard for me to put my finger on it. But what I feel like I finally realized, and again, I'm not going to really articulate this very well because it's very nebulous. It's very hard for me to actually pull on the string of what was bothering me. But what I think it was that, one, it kept replaying the same songs. It had a set playlist, and it was maybe 7-10 songs, and then it replayed that exact same list, which I hate it when people do that anyway. It really irritates me. There's a couple city pop lists that do that, where they'll play the same song. They'll have their list, and then they'll start it over. I block that because that immediately irritates the piss out of me. Just make it that set list and don't start it over. You don't need to. If I want to start the video over, I will, okay? But having listened to it, and I listened to it, I gave it a pass, and it was okay, because there were no lyrics, it was a little less obvious when they started to replay things. But the more I listened to it, it led me to realize that, oh my god, they're playing the same list in the exact same order again. And not only that, but I started to hear that each song in the list was following a formula. There was always a part where it had the breakdown, and it was always the same kind of way in which it was breaking down. And I understand that songs do oftentimes follow a formula. I'm not fucking stupid. I may not be able to create music, but I love music a lot. And so I get it. There are bridges, there's choruses, there's things that make music quite often formulaic, there's whatever. But this is why I'm having trouble describing what it is that I mean. I get that, music can be formulaic, but the way in which it was formulaic really started annoying me. So I went down, I'd already tried to see if I could tell if the pictures were AI generated, and I don't know, generators are getting better. Still, I still think that it's slop, but just because I might not be able to tell if something is generated or not, doesn't mean that I don't still believe that it's slop. But I really couldn't tell if usually it's a telltale for me if there's a cyberpunk list and you can't read any of the text or whatever. I'm oh yeah, that's fucking AI generated, and I will not listen to that music, because if they're willing to generate an image for it, then they're probably going to be generating the music for it. But anyway, I digress. So I went down to the comments, and I saw folks kind of talking about it, arguing back and forth whether or not it was AI or defending it or whatever. And, I don't know whether or not that set of lists by that musician, quote-unquote musician, is generated or not. But it made me, well, one, it was nice that some of the people were here are albums that people have created of similar sounding music. I found some fucking amazing shit that I know is real, I know is human made. So that was kind of cool. That was a benefit of going down into the comments. Normally I don't really bother with the comments, right? But I started trying to find, if this was a real band and what their motivation was for the music. So there's no description of the band. Most bands like to say something, like to have something to say about why they make music or what kind of music they make. So I even went to Spotify, and there's no description of the band. Nothing. There's nothing. You can't find any people behind it. There's nothing. Absolutely nothing, which to me, that makes me kind of suspect. But then they had also only started uploading 7 months ago. In addition to that, they are uploading a lot of music in quick succession. And so that also, made me suspect, Because, I mean, even if you got someone like King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, they don't put out full albums that fast, and they are extremely fucking prolific. They are putting out albums all the motherfucking time, but they aren't putting them out that fast. I think about someone like Macroblanc. We listen to him a lot. He's a Japanese musician, and he doesn't put albums out that fast. Of Montreal, another band, that dude, the lead singer is like the only one who's really left of the original band. And he's constantly putting out albums every fucking year. And he doesn't put them out that often. So you kind of, like, you see what I'm saying? If somebody's putting out, like, that many songs in that quick succession, maybe it's a team of people. Some people were, like, contemplating, oh, maybe it's a team that they're hiring on Fiverr. I don't know. I highly doubt it. I feel like there would be something, there should be something in, like, the description talking, like, what is your musical impetus? Why are you doing this? There's nothing. It's really heartbreaking because it kind of leads me to like suspect whether or not it is a human behind that. And, you know, if they are humans, that's one of the things that I said I was going to touch upon in just a minute. How AI generation has hurt musicians and made us all kind of like suspicious and trying to suss out who's the fucking rats, keeping in theme, who's the fucking rat. It's really frustrating because there could be new musicians out there who are not using AI generators, but they're getting mistaken to be generators. Now, for me, again, I can't say whether or not this specific channel is, but it just feels really like, to me, I decided I was going to block the channel because every single list that comes out just about, it comes off to me now because they're putting out so many that it's an idea guy. That he had a great idea, the great rat detective, that he just wants to share his pulp rat world, which would be fine, which would be cool if there was any soul behind it, other than like puns in the description and, you know, jokes in the list. But like, as I listen to the music, like, the music that is in the list doesn't, to me, feel to convey the mood of what the title of the list is. Like, you know, if someone's been double crossed or some shit, like, the music doesn't feel like it fits in that theme, if that makes any sense. So to me, like, if it is a person that's actually doing it, to me it just feels more like it's AI because, like, somebody just had some great ideas and has some fun puns that they want to share and they want to get that ad revenue and whatever the fuck from this music, and they just shit out a bunch of music. Again, it's awful to me, though, if that is an actual person making music, that we live in this world that has been created by the fact that people are AI generating slop. But to be quite honest, just all the arrows, I'm not a detective myself, so I could be wrong, but it doesn't feel like there's a person behind it. And it's really sad that we're even put in that position where we're questioning it. I don't know. I hope that makes sense. It's just so incredibly frustrating. As I said, it's really not fair to actual artists on so many levels. It's not fair to actual artists who put time and care into their craft. It's not fair to artists who have to prove their legitimacy, that's even called into question. It's not fair to us that we have to be this paranoid if you're someone like me who doesn't want to support AI slop, who wants to actually support the people whose vision is being co-opted by a machine so that people can be lazy and make little quippy videos and shit out a bunch of fucking ideas that they had without putting any meaning or further thought into it than that, and further work into the craft that I can appreciate. And for me, like, when I find out that something is AI generated, it just immediately sours the experience. I just immediately am turned off. When it dawns on me that something is AI, it's like watching the color drain from it, and it's just a hollow shell. It's no longer enjoyable for me. And you could say that's unreasonable. I don't care. You can have your opinion, but, like, to me, when you value human touch and human connection, no, it's not unreasonable to want that and to be disappointed when you've been duped by someone who is taking a shortcut and stealing that legitimate connection from you. I want to connect with people, not a generator, not an idea person who didn't do the work and didn't hire someone to do the work. You can't have that oh my God, I've done that. I felt that too moment with a generator. There's no, oh, been there, had that experience. There's no relating to a fucking generator. The generator isn't going to drip ink all over its art. The generator isn't going to make the decision on its own to redo a line over and over and over until it judges that that line is worthy. A person will, and I can relate to that frustration of trying to get it right. I can relate to the swell of victory when I succeed, when I see someone else succeed and be happy with what they've created. I can relate to the resignation of that choice when you're like shrugging it off like I so often do, good enough. I mean, those are real emotions that I can relate to. And that is a thread. It's an emotion that tethers us to other people and reminds me that I'm not alone. It reminds me of our humanity, and it's relatable. And to me, that's a beautiful thing. It endears me to others when I might otherwise feel alienated and alone. Quite often, I sometimes do get like so alienated by people. And, you know, we all do. I mean, I'm not going to act like, you know, other people don't get alienated, you know, from me too. I'm sure I do it to people. So it's nice to like have that reminder that, you know what, we are all human. We all make mistakes. Things aren't perfect. We make the mistake. But when we make the mistake, it's not because we don't understand there's a mistake. We have the capability of either intentionally making a mistake or trying to intentionally fix it. We have the thought and the sentience that the generator doesn't. A generator can't fill the void in my heart and in my soul that longs for that connection to other people. And to me, there's no need for it in the art world at all. Any of the arts. There's no good argument for it. There's no benefit for me and AI slop. And that's like just the abbreviated version of my thoughts on this. And I know there's going to be people who are tedious who are like, oh, a spell checker is AI. You know what I'm fucking talking about, okay? Don't be fucking tedious like that. Don't waste my time. You know, you're just being that, well, actually person. Shut the fuck up. We already know about that. You know, that's not what I'm talking about. You're just being argumentative. Which I know how to do that. I can relate to you being argumentative because I do that all the time. But anyway, okay, arguing with my figurative people that I'm creating. Okay, anyway, don't mind me, y'all. So why, just to kind of sum up this video, why do I opt to do my art by hand? Why do I opt to subject myself to that tedious action, that intentionality? Quite frankly, because surmounting and solving problems feels good. Even when I struggle. Even when it makes me unhappy. When I go back and fix it, or if I redo it, when I get it right, it feels so good. Because that sense of accomplishment is so important. It's so warming. It's so glowing. It means so much. I do this because of the process. I do it because of the joy it brings me. And that's it. So, yeah, I'll be back in a while. This is a long video. Peace and love. Fare you well. And keep on trucking.